Bang bang, it's your boy MBK, the action guy in the building. I have a special guest being Real Takes, aka Dan, and today we're talking about Blade Runner 2049. And Dan, feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where people can find you.
Yeah. I'm Dan. Real takes on Instagram, TikTok. That's pretty much it right now. I'd like to do some stuff on YouTube, but have not really gotten into that yet. But yeah, you asked me to talk about Blade Runner 2049, which I really enjoy. We were just kind of briefly talking about the original and this, but two great movies, very different movies, which I think makes it kind of fun to take a look at them and see what's going on with each.
Yeah, 100%. But I started off with this question. What's your first memory with Blade Runner 2049?
Um, my first memory, I saw it in the theater, which not a lot of people did. I mean, when it came out, I think I'm not really sure how much money they actually expected this to make. I mean, with how it's paced, it's a slower movie, it's longer. Coming out so far after the original, um, obviously it was a bit disappointing from like a box office standpoint.
Yeah.
But I mean, from a theater experience perspective, it was awesome. Um, it's a beautiful movie, and I think it's one of those movies where you want to see it on a big screen, right? You don't. It's still good at home, but it's not quite the same. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, saw it in the theater, really enjoyed it. And I think I watched it one other time in between, and then just rewatched it again to talk about it here. So
Yeah. For me, again, I watched it in the theater with some friends. It was just us in the theater, which raised my questions why wasn't more people watching this? Because I got so immersed to the world building of this film. I think the world building is really strong. And then my second question was, where was Harrison Ford? Because it doesn't show up until like probably around the third act. I think that's another marketing issue that could be a reason why this movie flopped, but we'll see about that.
yeah, you mean like you think people might have been expecting more of him, and then they got out and they were disappointed, and then they told other people, and it kind of hurt the movie that way.
Yeah, I think so because he was like marketed heavily in 2017 for this film, and you don't really see him until probably the hour 30 mark. I want to say like there's an hour left of the film, then you see him kind of thing. I'm some around there.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I kind of liked that. I feel like a lot of movies today um, will lean really heavily on the older character or whatever ties it into what people remember, and I kind of like that this movie didn't do that, and it just used him as a appropriately at a time later on in the movie where it worked and it didn't feel forced, and it added something to the story. So
Yeah.
I like how they
Yeah.
used him, but I can understand people being confused.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining about him barely being in the film, but
Mhm.
I like that part of the film still because they really used Decker's character really well from the original film and have like a more of an emotional arc for him, which we'll dive into later.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think his chemistry with Ryan Gosling was really nice too. I think they played really well off each other.
Yeah. So, what did you think about the opening of the film with the eyes showing? Obviously the eyes showcasing who's a replicant, who's a human. I thought that was a really interesting way, a great homage to the first movie right off the bat.
Yeah, I like the opening here. I know Denis Villeneuve has talked about um, his favorite shot in the movie is actually right at the beginning, and it's of Kay's hand when his hand is sitting by like the throttle in his ship, because he said he feels like people's hands are like kind of humanizing, and it makes him feel like a person and helps the audience connect to him and understand. Um, he's not actually that different, and that's kind of his favorite shot. It's a shot I love too, but I feel like it. This movie starts out so strong. Um, I wish Dave Bautista was here more, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's his scene is so good, and it's so like the tension builds really nicely, and then the action is effective, and it just sets up like pretty much the rest of the story and the mystery when he says, talks about a miracle and this and that.
Yeah,
It
like
gets you thinking, like, hey,
yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah, I've never seen a miracle before. And the way that Batista just says that, it brings so much weight to his performance,
Mhm.
especially the fact that he's barely in it, but it plays a role and have a full circle moment towards the end of the film. I thought that was this is an excellent way to utilize an actor with little to none screen time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, as he's kind of gotten more and more comfortable on the screen, like I hope he keeps getting bigger and bigger roles, but he's proven himself obviously frequently. So I just like watching him act. He's a good presence.
Yeah, 100%. And I think he is easily the best wrestler to actor that we ever seen before. I think every time he is on screen, he's always stealing the show. I think he's just a great actor. Oscar worthy actor. If he gets the right role, I feel like he could win Oscar. I'm going to say that right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's tough with guys like that, and especially like um, bigger guys that people just want to kind of typecast them in certain roles of like, whether it be like a villain or an action star or whatever, just something, simple. Uh, but I think he's proven like he can do a lot more, and has a lot of depth to him too.
Yeah, 100%. And another thing I really appreciate of the Ryan Gosling and Dave Bautista is they have great chemistry together. But I also love the fight scene when Dave Bautista is banging Ryan Gosling towards the wall, and you feel the force, and you see the wall breaking. And I thought that was a really great shot and showcasing the physicality of Dave Bautista, showcasing how strong he is. I thought that was a great little element that Denis does in this film.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of moments in the movie where you kind of feel what's happening, like whether it be like a little shake of the camera or like the way they use the like something they do with the audio, like it kind of you feel everything kind of shake in that moment, and I feel like it kind of is just effective in kind of bringing you into it and making you feel like you're there. And I mean, Denis is always good with that, but I think it's really effectively done here, especially because there isn't that much action in this movie. Like you said, it's a noir detective story, so it's like
Yeah,
very slow. It's more so about the discovery of what's going on than just like action or violence. So when there is
yeah,
action, I think it really cuts through nicely.
yeah. And then, like I said before, I think this is a great character study on the character K because this is K's character that we're trying to figure out who he is. But K's also trying to figure out who he is, and then you see that with torture horrors, and then you see Ryan Gosling showcase fantastic performance in like the memory test plays. I thought his
Mhm.
performance in that element was probably my favorite part of the film, especially where like he slowly breaks down and you see him yelling, "Damn it!" I thought that was just spectacular.
Yeah, yeah. Do you generally like Ryan Gosling in his roles, or like what is your kind of general take on him?
I generally like Ryan Gosling in his roles, but I'm glad he wasn't typecast as before because he was known for being more romance movies. So it's really nice to see him get opportunity to be in Blade Runner 2049. Obviously, we've seen him in Drive and other movies outside the realm, but I feel like he went back to being typecasted, unfortunately, especially with Fall Guy. But I think he's a great actor regardless of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough in Hollywood. Like, I think people want to balance, making money and being successful and having a career, and like they all have agents and people in their ear telling them do this, do that. Um, and the downside of like him taking something like this is it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time spent making this movie, and then the studio looks at the bottom line. They see, we spent. Um, Let me pull it up. They spent about $180 million making
Yeah.
this, and it made $280 million at the box office. So I feel like that's kind of what the studio sees, and they might then attach that to you. So you make something safer, and um, studios probably like that. But Yeah, I really like him. He's done a lot of challenging stuff. I hope he keeps balancing.
Yeah, balancing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of this, this was my introduction to Ana de Armas as actress. I'd never seen War Dogs, her first movie in Hollywood. I thought I was pleasantly surprised how great she was. Like essentially, she plays like a robot, and I think she just plays it really well as a character Joy. And the chemistry between Ryan and her, great throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting because the whole movie makes you kind of question, I guess, how you feel about them in general, like how you feel about Kay, how you feel about Joy. Like they're not real in our sense of the word, or they're not something that is tangible or has a soul. And I think the movie is questioning, kind of the concept of what the soul is, who has it and who doesn't, like what level of consciousness, um, I guess, kind of indicates the presence of a soul. And that's kind of one of the main questions in the movie. And I think it's interesting because they don't feel robotic, right? They feel like
Yeah.
they're trying to feel and they actually care about one another. So it's challenging you in a way, where they could have just been very boring performances. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. But like the fact that Ryan Gosling and Ana Armas made their performance so engaging and kept it like so engaging, so we be glued onto the screen with this story. It's pretty impressive what they did in this film overall.
Yeah, yeah. I think the most interesting thing that this movie does is taking kind of like we briefly touched on it, but taking everything you kind of expect out of Kay, and just making him essentially nobody. Like he's nothing special. He's not any kind of chosen one. He's not a huge important piece of the story. He's just a guy. He's just a person trying to do the right thing. And um, I think it's interesting there because a lot of people would probably expect him to be, the kid that was lost,
Yeah.
but it flips that on its head. How do you feel about that?
I thought that was great because, like, especially with a little foreshadowing when they were going into the DNA, and Casey is there's two similar DNAs, one that being a female, one that being male, and just adds so much layer mystery towards that, and you really feel for the character K because he doesn't know which one is him. He's seen the memories from Torture House horrors, my bad, torture horrors, and you feel like that is his own memories, and then later on it flips the script and it reveals as Decker's daughter. I thought that was excellent, but I also really like the way they introduced Decker's daughter in this film because she was stuck in this bubble because she was affected by this virus. I thought that all those elements were fantastic overall.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, the movie kind of shows you, I think if you were to take away sort of a message, it's not about like, you know, what you're born into or who you are like on the surface, but it's just about like the things you choose to do. Like you choose to do the right thing. Um, you choose to try to make things better, and that's what's actually important, and that's what he does. And I think in that he shows like a level of humanity that's more human than a lot of people might have made worse decisions in his shoes. So he just keeps trying to do the right thing, even after he realizes he's not special or he's not what he thought he was. So it's very interesting, and I think it was risky, but I like the choice.
Yeah, I mean, like, I want directors to take more risks. I don't want a simple story no more. You've seen that too many often. So I'm glad Danny's like, no, Kay is not the missing child, is Decker's daughter. I thought that's perfect. And but it also gives Decker an emotional arc because he hasn't seen his daughter until the end of the film. That's the only time he sees his daughter. And I thought this adds so much more depth to the character Deckard and makes you appreciate the original movie more for the character Deckard as well. Well, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, and I think the key to not you didn't want to just feel like Harrison Ford is just here to be here, like for a paycheck or just to tie it into the original movie. So I think giving him that kind of extra emotionality to the story helps kind of justify him being there, but also just gives you more of a reason to care. Um, and it works really nicely. And he's an older guy, still gives a good performance here.
Yeah,
He's 82 now, which is crazy because I feel like when I was a kid, he was in so many movies that I loved, kind of in his prime, but
yeah.
he's still going.
Yeah, and Harrison Ford's a guy that I don't think anyone could hate on. He's such a respectful actor at this point. I love Harrison Ford. He does great performances every time he gets a chance to do one. But like another thing about the character Decker, when it brought the fake replicant of Rachel, and
Yeah,
Decker says
the
her eyes
laughing
were
eyes.
eyes
Yeah.
were green. Yeah, I thought that's a little nice detail and a good nod to the first Blade Runner movie. Again, adding emotional layer performance because Decker's seeing someone who looks like Rachel die essentially, and it's terrifying.
Yeah, no, I agree. What do you think about Jared Leto here?
Jared Leto, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really like him. I couldn't understand a word that he was saying throughout the whole movie, but I do like the technology they use because he's blind with the
Yeah,
little beats around him, and I thought that was a really cool aspect. But I much prefer Love's performance in this movie because Love just brought so much terror in this film, especially what she does. Like when I don't know the actor's name, but every time she screams, you feel that anger in her, and you feel how scary she is, especially like when she kills David Sebastian's character right off rip, and I thought Love was great, and I feel like that's a character that's not talked about enough in the Blade Runner movies, in my opinion.
yeah, no, I agree. The actor's name is Sylvia Hoeks, and I think it's one of the best performances in the movie. I mean, I think, especially nowadays, so many movies that I feel like you see the villains and they don't leave much of an impact, and you just kind of end up forgetting them. I think it's hard to craft a good villain because we've seen so many of them, and like there are only so many different like tropes of villains that someone can be. So I think crafting one that people actually remember and actually makes you feel something is awesome. And I think it's almost tougher to be a memorable villain than like a memorable hero. So it's a good performance from her.
Yeah, I feel like she easily outshines Jared Leto in every single scene that they're part of. I'm like, I wish Love was more the main villain. I thought Wallace's character was kind of lame and just a generic villain just wants to take over the world. Like he doesn't really do much in it.
Yeah, I feel like he's just kind of there to like be weird, and, like be like Jared Leto likes playing kind of a weirdo character, which is fine. But a lot of
I'm
different actors could have done that, I think. So
especially right in the beginning, like when you get first like introduced to him, you see him as killing, the replicant, and
yeah.
in a really weird, seductive way. I don't know. That was just a weird way to introduce a villain.
Yeah, no, that was definitely strange. I mean, I guess it shows just like he doesn't value them at all, or just have any kind like any respect for them or concept of them being human. Um, I think, I mean, one of the things I like about Blade Runner and 2049 is like they're both really like rich movies theme wise and like have a lot to say. I think about humanity, and about the way we treat each other. It's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of direct commentary on like slavery and slave labor and racism and um, people just basically wanted to use replicants for whatever they needed them for, and that's all they wanted them to be. And then as soon as replicants kind of wanted to have a say about that or wanted to have some kind of autonomy, obviously people didn't like that. But I think there's a lot of pretty good social commentary in both the movies.
Yeah, I mean, to add on that, I feel like this movie has themes of loneliness in this film. Especially with Kay just feeling alone and just kind of feeling like an outcast, basically cannot figure out who he is as a person. Like you say, he's trying to do the right thing, But a scene when he sees like advertisement Joe, and Joe says, "You look lonely. I can't fix that." And you see the emotions of Ryan Gosling just going down with like crying. And I thought that was a really powerful scene in the film that anyone could realistically relate to as well.
Yeah, and um, I think you kind of see in his character like nothing is really in this world. I guess like nothing's real. Like even when he comes home, um, and she first like greets him, and she like there's like a fake steak there that she like puts over it, and like she's not actually there, and that food's not actually there, but like that's all he has, and I feel like um that's something that I feel like a lot of people can relate to. Like a lot of people, especially now, I feel like can become really detached from like the real world if you're
Yeah.
just like always, online or in your phone or whatever. It's easy to like forget, so much else is happening around you. So I think we have to remind ourselves that.
Yeah,
Uh,
like, sorry to interrupt, but at that, like, we're always on our phones. Sometimes we forget, but reality, man, we just create our own fancy world. And I feel like that's what Blade Runner 2049 is kind of showing us, if that makes sense, because like Kay is so into his like own routine that he's like so glued into having joy. He doesn't really see the outside world aspects of things until later on in the film.
yeah, yeah, and he's missing out on a lot with something that's like, you know, probably comfortable for him and like presenting itself as perfect, but when you really peel it back, like he's missing out on, a lot of like actual connection and he's not quite in touch with like his more human side, which I think he develops as the movie goes along, and he's like, sacrificing for other people and like I said, just trying to make the right choices, which is what kind of defines us. So
Yeah, sort of weird way a coming to age story for character K, like coming to the age being more human, kind if that makes sense.
yeah, 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 and I think ultimately the movie is asking just what does it actually mean to be alive or be human, and I think there's a lot of different ways to answer that, but I don't know. Would you classify him as like a living, thinking entity or like a human being?
I'd probably go with the entity more so because his like memory wasn't realistically real. So I feel like that was a copy and paste of Decker's daughter's DNA, which would make sense and makes the ending feel more powerful, especially when he gives Decker the torture horrors and tells him to see his daughter. Just adds more emotional layers to his performance, and especially during his death scene, just impacts you more in that sense of a way. At least that's how I'll put it together. At least,
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the movie's also talking about like this society we're kind of talking about just now in terms of people being kind of dehumanized and kind of like detached from other people and reality. I think a lot of that is kind of driven by like the big corporations in this world that are
yeah,
just like constantly pushing all this stuff onto everybody. Um, and I think like the more people are alone and the more people are isolated, the more they probably rely on like AI or replicants to entertain them or whatever, and they just kind of lose touch with the things that actually make us us. So I think uh, very much like with Ridley Scott did the same thing with Alien. I think
yeah,
in terms of talking about corporations and greed and um, it's cool.
corruption.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, and it's cool to see those kind of themes obviously in Blade Runner and then carried forth into this as well.
Yeah, like 100%, because I feel like, for example, TikTok, for example, we love TikTok, but like most people that like go on TikTok, they're stuck to TikTok for like hours, but they're not, in the reality of the outside world, and they get stuck in one thing. And that's what literally is going on with the character K is he's stuck in this like little world with joy and this fake stuff. He doesn't really understand the perspectives of being an actual human being, which makes his character super interesting and it adds so much like messages with one character. Like we talked about K majority of this discussion so far. This is a character who raises so many questions and answers and probably one of the best sci-fi characters of all time. I'm gonna say it right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And because I think this is a movie, right, that I think like it lends itself to rewatching because of how long it is and because of the amount that's going on and the amount of different small little scenes where you can miss something. This is not a movie you can watch like on your phone or not paying attention. Like you have to be dialed in. Which I also think for some people nowadays is like a struggle. Like I think people like Netflix movies because you can just be on your phone and
Yeah, exactly.
there's some bullshit happening and then you okay, I'll go back talk to somebody whatever. But this is not designed to be watched like that. Like this is designed to actually be watched,
Yeah.
and to pay attention. But not everyone wants to sit for that long, which I understand. But I think the beauty of that is there's actually something being said here, and there's things you can like apply to your own life and that make you think, which to
Yeah.
me is ultimately the point of movies. I mean, that's what I look for. So
Yeah. And I strongly think this is a perfect sci-fi movie because like even though it's a super long movie, like every scene means something. Like
yeah,
there's meaning towards every single aspect of this film. And that's something really important. Like my first scene being when Kay goes to the memory area, like I said before, and just breaks down, realizing that's not his own memories, and has an emotional breakdown, which Ryan Gosling just does a superb job at. Speaking of that, what's your first scene in Blade Runner 2049? That's a heavy
honestly,
question.
yeah, it's hard because there is so much to it. I do. We talked about it already. I do really like the opening with the Batista. I think it's really effective. I also like the scene um, where I'm trying to remember her name. Robin Wright's character, Lieutenant Joshi.
Joshi,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, where Love basically confronts her and kills her.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
that
that's
was
a really powerful, dark scene. Um, and I like the way it the camera like they cut to a shot outside when she actually like stabs her, and you see it from afar, and like there's no noise, and then it goes back into the room. Um, Denis just does a lot of stuff like that. That's
yeah,
just it helps to like amplify the moment, and
yeah.
I think that's a really good scene as well.
Speaking of that scene, I love like the aspect of how it slowly builds up when well she's just drinking some alcohol and then Love just crushes the glass with like
Yeah,
a little handshake and then it slowly pans out and you see that scene happening with silence. I thought that's an effective way to use no sound during that scene, which is something that elevates this film to another level, is the sound design. Like Denny knows when to use sound and when not to use sound. And I think that's a big part of this film as well.
yeah. I think you're exactly right, and I think um, he's very careful with that. I've talked about this many times, but I think silence in movies is like ridiculously underused and underrated. I think it's funny. I was just watching a movie on Netflix, that Carry On movie, and
Oh,
I said to my buddy like the music in these movies is always terrible. Like it's always just exactly the same. Like it's just this monotonous like score that just always sounds the same. It's never special, and it just makes like to me, it makes a lot of the movies feel the same. And I think like a movie like this, the score itself is so special. I mean, it's a lot of the like synthesizers, and um, it's always interesting, and it's always something new and fresh. And then, like you mentioned, he knows when to just cut it out and just let the movie be quiet and still. And I feel like I prefer that, and I think there's so many moments like that um, where you don't need anything and just let the moment kind of speak for itself. So I like.
Yeah. And I also had that issue with the sound of like modern movies is because they use sound so much, but sometimes you gotta marinate and have no sound to like elevate the scene, right?
Yeah.
Like Denny, like for example, the Love Death scene with Robert Wright's character, no sound, and you feel the impact of it. That's something that's great about it.
Yeah, yeah, and then I mean, it doesn't. It's he mixes it up too. Like I mean, um, the scene with Gosling in the snow, like there's a good score there, and the music is going.
Yeah,
But it like helps you. It helps build up the emotion there in a different way.
yeah,
Um, he just really knows what he's doing. He's very careful with this. Really like it, and it's Hans Zimmer who did the score
yeah,
with Benjamin Wallfish, but and also Roger Deakins did the cinematography, which
yeah. I could tell Roger Deakins did that. Those shots are like Blade Runner 2049 is such a beautiful movie. Like you pause any moment and it's gonna look like a piece of art, which is crazy. Like
yeah, yeah, and I mean, you just when you really think about it, and you think about like the amount of effort and thought that goes into every frame, it makes the slower moments or the moments where there isn't as much happening, you can appreciate them because they're all kind of spectacular.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, Deakins, another guy, he's 75 years old. It's gonna suck when we lose him, but
Yeah.
got to appreciate him.
100%. Another thing I love about this movie is the color gradings. There's so many different color gradings, like the yellow that you see where Jared Leto's Wallace is in, and you see the city color grading being more black with like the lights being the vibrant colors, and then when you meet Harrison Ford's Decker is more orange, and then the when Casey's advertisement for Joe is purple, or purple or pink, pinkish purple. But I just love the different stylistic color gradings in this film. I think that's another big part of the movie as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think a lot of those moments, like when people talk about this movie, or if they when they share like their favorite shots, a lot of times it's like um, that like orange when he's going into the city with like the radiation to find Decker, um, or the scene with the huge, you know, um, projection of joy that you just talked about.
Yeah.
Um, but like those when you're when it's well shot and that colorful, like it really sticks in people's heads and they remember it, which is what you want, I think.
Yeah. Another thing I like about this movie is the little fight scene between Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford, and there's punching each other, and then you see Deckard stop and say, "I like this song," and then want to drink. Like the little subtle humor there just works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And music is like we talked about the score, but like music in terms of like a soundtrack is also fairly important in this. There's like a few different Sinatra songs throughout it. Um,
Elvis.
yeah, but Sinatra and Elvis both get a lot of play, which I would like to look into. I'm not sure why Sinatra, but it's nice. It's a nice like switch up, I think.
Also, just like help makes sense because Deckard's more of an old head and probably appreciates like older music. Just having
Mhm.
that element that this is some of his favorite songs. These are some of his favorite artists. Like old school '60s music.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, it kind of ties the two of them together because Gosling puts on a Sinatra song when he first comes home in that first scene. So I think it's a nice kind of like tie in between the two of them to show they have something in common.
Yeah. And well, things don't go well after that, especially with Wallace's corporation finding them. And then you have a really emotional death of Joy dying. I don't know why they made me care about a fake robot dying, but they did somehow. It's Danny Villeneuve. How does he do this? Like,
Yeah, and I think it was just, the kind of the sacrifice that she makes, and the stakes of the situation, and like, but you don't get to that point of that actually working if you don't build up the relationship properly before. So they put in the time, and you get invested in the two of them, and then it works when she's taken away. So, um, yeah, and I mean, just two really good actors here.
yeah. I'm excited to see well, hopefully Ana de Armas gets better roles because she's been kind of going downhill. It's not her fault though, because I think she's great. I
Yeah,
think it's her agent's fault, but hopefully Ballerina is the step in the right direction for her and she gets better roles in the future because I don't know. Blonde and where that Chris Evans Ghosted movie
Ghosted.
was. Gosh, I'm like, what are these things doing with all of their armors? She's deep water too. Like, I don't know. Like
Yeah,
they're just wasting her talent at this point. Hopefully Ballerina is good though.
yeah, I know that got pushed back from this year, and they were saying it was really bad, and had to rewrite it or something. But hopefully, it's better. Um, she was in No Time to Die, the new Bond movie, which I thought she was good in that.
Yeah, but she was only
Um,
in there for like 5 minutes or so. Yeah.
yeah, no, true, but still, just a good movie to have on a resume. And then Knives Out was good. The Gray Man was like whatever. I didn't see Ghosted or Blonde, but
I didn't watch Blonde. I refuse to watch Blonde. There's no way I'll watch it Blonde.
yeah. Then she has a movie this year with Jude Law and Vanessa Kirby and Sydney Sweeney,
Oh,
called Eden, but I don't know when this actually comes out.
Ian, that sounds interesting. Okay, I like that cast so far.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, she's a good actor, and I hope she gets some more good roles.
Yeah, me too. Because like I see this talent, I see the performances that she did in Nice Out, and Halima War Dog she was good in, and Blade Runner, and I seen where her career's going, and doesn't make sense where it's heading, right? Like, um, but another thing I want to talk about is sort of, you know, after that moment when Kate sees, the advertisement Joy, you see a little like scene of you never seen Miracle before, seen a full circle moment before heading over to save Decker from love. I thought that was beautifully done, and
I agree, and I think it's nice especially because the movie is long and so much happens and there's so much dialogue. It's nice to have that callback and just kind of like remember where you started and kind of the importance of what's happening. I think that was really effectively done.
yeah, and you see like a really awesome fight scene between Kay and Love,
Hmm.
and you see Kay getting stabbed and brings you like a little heart attack because he's like dying basically during that scene, and a little cool little horror moment where Kay just comes out of nowhere and grabs Love's neck and
From the
chokes her
water.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
from the water. That was a really cool. Yeah, I just love that.
Yeah, no, that was good. And she's a character who you really wanted to like get her comeuppance there. You really kind of hate her. So that
Yeah.
was good to see.
Yeah, but like speaking of love, do you feel a little bit humanity in her in the beginning of the film where Wallace kills the replicant and he just points to love just being a little bit in shock during that scene? Did you feel like a little bit of humanity in her?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it kind of shows you how, you know, people can just kind of end up however they are by the people they're surrounded with and the people they're underneath. I feel like she was probably like twisted into the person or uh, the character that she was like over time. Um, it would be interesting to see kind of how like her when she was younger and how she kind of changed. But I can see a little bit of humanity there.
Yeah.
Um,
N- Why does this want me to see like a prequel of Love? Because I kind of want to see how she becomes the way she is.
Yeah, I think that would be excellent. But given the fact this made no money, not likely.
Yeah,
We are getting the TV show, Blade Runner 2099, which is coming, I think, next year. So I'm curious to see how that turns out. I hope it's good.
hopefully it's good and we see another Blade Runner movie because I generally want to experience this world again, the big screen. But we'll see, we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just it's just a matter of them wanting to take a risk, and I don't know if it would make money or not, but it's one of those things that I hope at some point it happens because it's an incredible world and you can do whatever you want with it. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
I mean, you could explore so many more ideas in this world. Like we already talked about the Relicants, we talked about slavery, racism, all of those elements, but we only also talk about like self identity and loneliness. There's so much impact in this whole nearly 3 hour long movie, and you could do so much more in this world, and it's crazy. But oh,
Yeah,
which sucks that this movie flopped and well flopped, but at least it gets appreciation now, which is a great thing. Maybe that could be a driving force of more Blade Runner content in the future because of that, but we'll see.
yeah, and it's funny because the original Blade Runner, nobody liked it when it came out either. That was not successful. That movie, I believe, at some point they sent a different cut of the movie to a festival by accident, and they showed it there, and everyone really liked it. But when the first version came out, nobody liked it. It didn't do well. It was kind of like a cult classic. So it's kind of fitting, I guess, that this didn't do well, but also is like not a cult classic, but I feel like people that like it really like it. Like I feel like people that watch it generally enjoy it. It's just tough to get people to actually watch it. Um, so yeah, maybe over time it'll just keep gaining steam.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like the same thing is about to happen with Furiosa very soon. I feel like that's going to become a cult classic. I don't
Such
know
a
why.
good movie, man. Like
It's
such
a,
a good movie.
it's a 5 out of 5 star movie. It's
Yeah.
still my favorite movie of this year.
Yep.
Why did it flop? I don't know. I was so pissed when that happened.
Yeah, and I mean that was a combination of reasons, but it was such a shame. And that's another thing where, you know, I want to see more stories from that world. And like now it's just like it's going to be associated with like financial failure. So it sucks, but great movie. One in my top 5 of the year. So
Yeah, I really hope we get to see Mad Max Wastelands still.
yeah,
Hopefully, with Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron. Fingers crossed for that because I just love that world, man. Like the things
yeah,
that George Miller does from like the first two Mad Max movies to Fury Road and Furiosa, just like such a big leap, and it's so incredible what he has done with that world, man.
yeah. He's a just talented director. I like pretty much. I've watched everything he's made. I like pretty much all of it. Um, Another guy who's also getting older. He's like 80 years old, still working. Um, but yeah, I would like another movie from that world. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Like, I feel like by the fair sci-fi movies are Mad Max Fury Road, Furiosa, Blade Runner 2049. It's always going to be those three my favorites. That's probably going to be my top three forever, essentially. And they're both like, well, Mad Max Fury Road did flop, but Furiosa and Blade Runner 2049, unfortunately, they flop. It
Yeah,
sucks.
Fury Road. Like I don't think it didn't make as much money as people think it did, but it did do well. It made like I want to say like 600 or 700 million, but the budget was pretty large.
Yeah.
Um, but The Matrix is always going to be my favorite.
Yeah, Matrix, that's valid. Another thing I want to talk about is what did you think about Decker's daughter? The way she was introduced, the way they used her in this film.
Um, I think it was fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there could have been a little bit more of her, or a little bit more depth to her. Um, but I guess that kind of wasn't really the point. The point was just that she was there and she was, to get them reunited. But I don't know. I think it could have been a little bit more explored. What about you?
I'm in the same boat. That's why I gave you that questions because I feel like she could have been utilized a bit more in this film. But again, there's so much in this movie, so it's hard to
Yeah.
balance everything.
Yeah,
It's if I had small nitpicks, it'd probably be Decker's daughter not having more screen time and Jared Leto's weird, really weird performance that just put me out of the film. But other than that, it's a five-star movie in my eyes still.
yeah. Um, how do you? I mean, how do you like rate? Like, do you rate movies on like objective things in your mind, where like you kind of are checking off boxes, or is it just off enjoyment, or like how do you think about that?
Um, it's more so on enjoyment or how much I relate to the film.
Yeah, same
I
way.
don't like being critic no more. I don't want to nitpick everything about a film. If I enjoy it, I enjoy it. If I don't, I don't. You know,
Hmm.
like I don't want to be pretentious. Say, oh, this movie is trash because of these reasons, and just like, well, I don't want to torn down a movie because a lot of people work on them. So for me, it's like enjoyment levels of the film.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I definitely don't mind tearing something down because I think a lot of movies are made like without care behind them, and I think studios a lot of times just want to make money and they don't care about the customer that's spending their money to go to the theater. So,
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like I would always prefer to look out for like the consumer over because like the studio and the actor they're getting paid regardless, and like they don't give a shit what I think. Um, but yeah, I think right like rating off enjoyment is definitely the way to do it, and I think like emotional connection for me is what I look for. Like a lot of people, I think there's a lot of movies that are really like cold, but like people will like how they look or how they're shot or like the very technical elements. I don't care.
yeah.
Like that's always going to be there in some movie or another, but like if I don't feel anything, I don't mess with it.
Yeah, I mean, recently I rewatched the Doom movies, and I mean, they didn't do much for me. I still give them 4 stars, but I don't know, they don't hit the same on rewatch. At least for
Yeah.
me, I don't know.
A lot of people feel that way, and I think that's also another movie where like the theater is just different. Like and I think a lot of Denise stuff is that way. Like whether it be like Arrival, like something like that. Like it's just different in the theater. I think it's more impactful. But
Yeah,
um, yeah, I mean, he's made a lot of movies. They're all kind of different. He's had a really interesting career.
yeah. But like speaking of Arrival or Blade Runner 2049, I still feel those same emotions in my home, right?
Hmm.
For Dune, I don't know, maybe it's because they use like a whole bunch of Middle Eastern culture and Muslim culture, but not really have the actors in there from that culture in the film, kind of brings me out of it. Maybe that's why I don't appreciate it as much as others around me, but that could be just me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I mean, when Herbert was writing it, he actually was like he was mostly kind of like influenced by Buddhism. Like he was that's what he kind of studied and wanted to put into the story. But there's definitely influence from like Islam. Like it's kind of a mix of things. Um, and like North African cultures, Middle Eastern cultures. Um, he definitely kind of blended it all together. But um, yeah, I think that's a fair point. Um, I love the movies, but not everybody does.
Yeah, I mean, I think majority of people love the films. I just really like the films, and
Yeah.
but like I go with emotional connections. I feel like I was more emotionally connected to the character K in Blade Runner 2049 for several reasons: self identity, loneliness, all that. Just you can relate to. You could present that to somebody, watch this movie with somebody, and analyze all those things. And I think why this movie is important is because of those elements. And every time you rewatch it, you can find something new in it, and just something really special about it.
Yeah. Have you watched his other movies?
Prisoners and yeah, I've seen them. Prisoners, Sicario, Ghost movies. Yeah, I've seen Ghost.
Yeah. You should watch Ensemble.
Oh, I've seen that on D's. That movie was haunting. Yeah,
Yeah.
based around the Lebanese war.
The
Yeah,
War, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite from him, personally. But I really like that movie a lot.
Speaking of Santis, it's still relevant to this day, man. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that war was, tied into conflict between Palestine and Israel. Like Israel
Yeah,
was heavily involved in making that happen, and that was it was. I mean, that was a hard, like, that's one of those wars that just like nobody ever talks about. But it wasn't
yeah,
that long ago, and like so many people died.
yeah,
And it was everybody. I mean, you had Christians doing terrible things, you had Muslims doing terrible things, Israel, like it was awful. But it was a lot of like Christian militias and stuff doing bad things, and it's just, I don't know. It sucks that we're still seeing like effects from that war today, but
yeah.
I think it's a great movie.
I think it's fantastic. It's a hard watch. I'll
Yeah,
say that.
yeah,
It's definitely a movie that is hard to rewatch, especially with the conditions of the world, like you said, with Palestine and that other country that I won't name because it's not a country, you know.
yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add to Blade Runner 2049, or is that pretty much it?
Um, no, I think I would just say, if anyone out there hasn't watched it, definitely watch it. It's worth the time. I bought it here to have, but I think it's a special movie, and like even if you don't like it, I think you'll get something out of it, right? Like you'll get some type of message, or you might appreciate a shot or two. Um, and yeah, I would encourage everyone to try to watch the rest of his movies and keep supporting him when he puts stuff out, because he's one of the people that's like actually trying and
Yeah.
doing it right. And regardless of whether we connect with everything, um, I don't love Sicario for some reasons, but he's still trying and putting in a lot of effort, and definitely should be supported.
Yeah, Denny is like a director that has his own vision, and he will try his best to showcase it. And I think that's what makes him probably one of the best directors working right now, if not the best director working right now, like the modern directors wise.
Yeah, and I also think he's not an asshole, which is
Yeah,
because a lot of people
yeah,
have that kind of attitude, but then they're just like a complete dick about it, and it's like you don't have to, like, you can be a creative, you know, an artist, and have, be creative and have your ideas, but you can
yeah.
also know how to handle people and communicate properly. I think that's important. So yeah,
Also, it's Kenyan. Shout out to Canada.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Ensemble was a Canadian movie, I think.
I think it was a French Montreal movie, was if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
So it was,
Montreal.
yeah, it was French Canadian.
Yep. Yeah.
Premiered at Venice and Toronto in 2010. Yeah, great movie.
Great movie. Watching News as well, but just be cautious
Be
because it's a
warned. Yeah,
hard. Yeah, okay, there we
yeah.
go. Anyways, man, it was great talking about Blade Runner 2049. Go give Dan a follow. Go give Dan
Wherever it's at.
wherever it is. Go give Dan a follow on TikTok, Instagram. You have a YouTube as well? Or you work on it?
No, not yet. Maybe someday.
All right, I'll put his Instagram and TikTok in the description for sure. Anyways, yeah, peace. MBK out.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah.